Unbelievable what's going on in Louisville. Yesterday, the grand jury in the Breonna Taylor case, I'm sure everybody knows this by now, they recommended 3 counts of wanton endangerment against former Louisville, Kentucky officer Brett Hankison, who fired blindly, shooting 10 rounds into Taylor's apartment. Breonna Taylor, who never had a criminal record in her entire life, was killed. Nobody has been charged for her death. The grand jury did not charge anybody for the death of Breonna Taylor. Just one officer who got charged with wanton endangerment for shooting into a neighbor's apartment. The grand jury did not charge anybody for the death of a woman who had no criminal record, who was sleeping in her own apartment, and they just banged down the door. At a hastily called midday news conference, Louisville Mayor Greg Fisher announced that beginning today, a 72-hour curfew will be enacted, prohibiting people to be on city streets from 9 p.m. to 6:30 a.m. Sergeant Jonathan Mattingly, he was one of the people who was there on that no-knock warrant. He sent a mass email to the police department on Tuesday defending his actions and criticizing the city's leadership. In his 6-paragraph email, Mattingly apologized to his fellow officers and their families. What about apologizing to Breonna's family? But okay.
Right.
And he blamed the mayor, as well as Public Safety Chief Amy Hess and former Louisville Metro Police Chief Steve Conrad for failing all of us in epic proportions for their own gain and to cover their asses. Now, Taylor was in her home with her boyfriend, Kenneth Walker, when Louisville officers raided the apartment after midnight on March 13th. They were executing a warrant to search for drugs. According to NBC News, no drugs were recovered. The only thing that happened was shots were fired. Breonna Taylor is dead. Now, in response to the grand jury decision, Americans nationwide showed up to protest and demand justice in New York, Chicago, Atlanta, Grand Rapids, Michigan, Philadelphia, Indianapolis, Los Angeles, Washington, D.C. In Louisville, two officers were shot and wounded. CNN reports that the wounds were not life-threatening. Yo-Yo and Vanessa, we're going to be joined by David Moreno shortly. David is a former district attorney. He's been on our show before. He is a partner here at Spar and Bernstein. I know you both have a lot to say on this. In short, because I want to bring David on so everyone can understand what's happening legally, but obviously what's happening emotionally, you guys are going to share with us right now.
So at this point, you guys already know how deep I feel about Black Lives Matter, protesting. You've seen me out in the streets, even when everybody was scared to go out. My family members, my younger sister lives in Brooklyn, has been protesting in the front streets. She got arrested. We had to raise money for all the people that got arrested there. You know, this right here is literally a slap in the face. To charge an officer for a bullet that didn't hit the person that killed this young lady. You're getting charged for a bullet that didn't hit that, but all those bullets that hit this young lady, there's no charge. It's like, and then to put the curfew, it's like, we're gonna spank you, put you in your room, but then it's like we're gonna keep on flat, just waving food and candy and all this in front of your face, and we're not going to allow you to eat any of it. It's at this point, it's like, what do you do? And that's why I keep on telling everyone we have to vote. You have to do research with your local voting. I've seen so many stats of how Trump won by however many votes from his winning states, and then it shows how many Black voters didn't go to vote. And it was triple the amount of votes that he won. Literally, if we go out and vote, he will not win these states. He will not win it. So that's the only way we can win this. It's the only way. This right here is disheartening, though. It literally ruined my whole.
It is a systemic problem. It is a problem of the system. I'm going to talk to David about it shortly, but first, Nesquik, what do you have to say?
No, I'm so happy when I heard that we were bringing David on the show. I think it's very important to hear this broken down from someone in his position that experienced being a part as a district attorney and part of the system of a city. But because I've had someone in my inbox, like it's so interesting how there's people just like myself, I'm also Black. To me, it's deeply rooted. And there's people that will still argue when you're trying to keep this conversation going about, justice for Breonna Taylor. I literally had someone in my inbox that's like, I can't believe how people do not have all the details on this case and go ahead and continue to preach justice when it was already served. That is literally what I got in my inbox. And I did not even bother. I said what I had to say to this person, and then I did not care to continue the conversation.
Just out of curiosity, how was justice served?
Well, they just felt that all the details that the media, the way that the media presents everything, did not give all the details on the case. And what I had posted was how it was city money, it was taxpayers' money that ended up paying for the settlement with her family. That's what I had posted. And I was attacked because she felt that, the police department shouldn't have been, or there should have not been any money. That was enough served, basically. That justice was served by her family receiving the amount of money that they did.
All right.
So can't wait to hear from David.
Yeah, let's
break this down.
Let's watch Spar and Bernstein trial attorney. He's a former assistant district attorney, David Moreno. He posted a video on his Instagram earlier today reacting to the grand jury's decision in the Breonna Taylor case. Let's watch.
It's time to have a conversation about the role of a prosecutor in a criminal court proceeding. This is something that I've thought about so much over the years. Something that ultimately led to my decision after law school to become a prosecutor. Why? Because the role of a prosecutor is actually to seek justice, right? Contrary to popular belief and contrary to what we see ever so often, prosecutors do not represent a victim making an allegation. Prosecutors do not represent law enforcement. Prosecutors, by nature, represent the county or city and the constituents contained therein. Meaning, for example, in New York, if you're a prosecutor in New York, you represent the city of New York, the people that live in the city of New York. And it's your role to seek justice. What does that mean? That means to take an extra hard look at a case to make sure that when you have someone's liberty in your hands, you're investigating the case thoroughly. Your job as a prosecutor, your role as a prosecutor is not to give a defense attorney a hard time, is not to take one person's word as gospel without doing your own due diligence. An efficient, effective, thorough, and honest prosecutor is going to look at a case even more thoroughly and with more scrutiny than a public defender or than a defense attorney. Unfortunately, so many times, so often, we are dealing with prosecutors that don't understand that great honor and the role that they have, because of which we have a broken criminal justice system. And I'm telling all of you young prosecutors out there, don't fall into the bureaucracy of your office. If something doesn't feel right, speak up. If there's an arrest that you're unsure about, do your due diligence. Make sure that you feel comfortable at the end of the day and you can sleep at night with what you do every day at work. It can be an amazing job and you can help a lot of people, but your role is to seek justice. Remember that.
All right, so David Moreno is joining us. I have also Jonathan and Vanessa, myself. Now, David, you came into my office earlier today. You had a lot to tell me, a lot of thoughts. You want to summarize what you told me in my office and then about what happened here with Breonna Taylor? And then, of course, I welcome Jonathan and Vanessa to jump in and ask their questions as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys. Awesome to be here. You guys do an excellent job every day. And every time I'm on the show, I'm honored and blessed. But yeah, what I share with you, Brad, and it's actually sad to say that when I made that clip this morning, that was about 8:30 this morning. And by 8:30, I had already been dealing with the prosecutor from a particular office in the tri-state area for about an hour and a half. that was really abusing their power, not really being receptive to reason. And I say it's sad because, Brad, I posted that. Obviously, what happened with Breonna Taylor is an amazing example of why what I said resonates with so many people. But when I posted that in that moment, I wasn't even thinking about Breonna Taylor. I was thinking about the everyday battle that you face as a criminal defense attorney in New York City, as a black man in New York City or any city, or as, you know, any human being that should be guaranteed, you know, due diligence, due process, and justice, not just, you know, a minority. Obviously, you know, what happened with Breonna Taylor, I have extremely strong thoughts about, and maybe that led to subconsciously why I was so frustrated today. But even to those prosecutors that are out there that, you know, want to do good when they come in the office, I've seen so many people fall in line, change their value systems, and become different from when they first started. They go in with high hopes of doing the right thing, and if they're not strong-willed enough, they just fold to, you know, and I said it to someone today on Instagram, the mob mentality. Just like in the police department, there are good cops that come in there and it's like, hey, I want to be a community police officer and do the right thing, and then they fall to mob rule. Or in the corporate environment, we see it all the time.
Well, you know, I was talking to you and I said, from a lawyer standpoint, okay, I understand the defense of the cops, which is I'm getting shot at, so I have to protect myself and I shoot. That's their defense. That's how they got off. Self-defense, even though there's evidence that they shot first. Now, we were talking, David, and I said, what is somebody to do? This is a systemic problem that we have with our entire system. These cops, I don't think I could be wrong. I don't know. You can go to all four of us because I'd like to see everybody's reaction. I could be wrong. I don't know. But I don't think they woke up that morning and they said, I'm going to go kill a black woman. I don't think that was their mentality. I think that they woke up and they were told they have to do this no-knock warrant, which is knock down a door and go arrest somebody in somebody's private home. And they have, and I'm not defending the cops by any way, because a woman got killed and someone has to go to jail for that. They have two choices. They could say, I'm not going to go knock down this lady's door. And then they could be suspended. They could be put on desk duty. They could be fired for insubordination. They got to follow what their superiors tell them to do. Their superiors told them, go knock down this door. And when they go and knock down the door, we've all seen enough movies already. Nobody goes and knocks down a door picking their nose. They knock down their door, guns like this. Ready. So the superiors in the police department, the judge who signed the no-knock warrant, the legislators who made this law, the governor who signed the law, to me, are all complicit. Because they know when they are going to knock down a door, somebody's going to defend themselves. We don't know who shot first, but you got to expect it. And the cops expect it because they come with their guns drawn. They're going to get shot. They're already trigger happy. Because they know somebody may shoot them. So they already have happy trigger finger. And then a shot goes off and then a shot goes off and people die. The cops with their happy trigger finger, the cops who don't say anything and just go and follow blindly their superiors, go knock down this door to a home where a woman is living who's never been arrested, to find out there's no drugs in, and this is just for drugs. This is not some manhunt for some massive killer of 50 people. And to follow all of these rules from a judge, from the higher ups in the police department, the governor, the legislator, and to me, where it's even more racist, where it is even more unfair, where it is two justice systems, I said to David, I said, can you imagine a scenario in Louisville, Kentucky, where a judge signs off on a warrant to tell cops to go knock down a door in an upper middle class white neighborhood because somebody there is suspected of having drugs? Would that ever happen in an upper white middle class? Never. So it's the systemic racism of all of this, of cops blindly following along, of superiors saying, go do this in black neighborhoods. And in the end, a black woman is dead who never committed a crime. Somebody knocks down their door, and nobody is responsible and pays for this because the cops say, well, I was defending myself. What that is a system-wide. These are not, I mean, it may be racist cops. I'm not commenting on, I don't know what's going through their head. But this is a systemic problem that only will be fixed when our leaders fix the laws.
So I agree that, it's definitely a systemic problem. But one, I don't see how the system would be considered the problem when she was on the floor literally gasping for air for 20 minutes left on the floor. Her fiance said that she was still alive, coughing for blood, and nobody called for her. Nobody did CPR. I'm kind of baffled. It's not just the system. They are crooked. They're crooked cops.
I would respond to that.
Yeah, sure.
I shot you first, and you're on the ground gasping for air.
You as a police officer have a responsibility to get that person help immediately,
correct.
Not 20 minutes later.
This is what I was going to say.
Immediately.
And I don't know, and this goes back to my earlier point, and I agree with Brad's point. It is a broken system, all the way top to bottom, down to the lowest rung of law enforcement, which is the actual police officers, right? It is a broken system. Where the cops really went wrong, and where I find, besides shooting and killing Breonna Taylor, which is obviously the most wrong and unjust thing to do, is on these no-knock warrants, they have an ambulance on site for every last one. And for whatever reason, when they arrived at the home, the residence of Breonna Taylor, they told that ambulance to leave. That, to me, is the most condemning factor in this entire case. Secondly, in regards to your question, Jonathan, and how can it be the system? Let me tell you, being in the system from the other side, to get a no-knock warrant is one of the hardest warrants to obtain. Brad hit right on the head. The people that law enforcement exercise no-knock warrants are those that are an extreme danger to society, where there's a heightened risk that, but for that no-knock warrant, right? No-knock meaning no knock, no announcement, which they claim they said they were law enforcement officers, which I do not believe them, because they had the right to enter that home without doing it. So I think they're trying to cover tracks there. That to get that is extremely high burden. There are knock warrants, there are knock and announce warrants, there are arrest warrants, there are search warrants. There are a number of different levels to warrants. Now, there was a cry by the public to arrest the cops that killed Breonna Taylor. But guess what? We should also be looking to charge the judge that irresponsibly signed a no-knock warrant when the only allegation was not that there were narcotics sold at that residence, not that there was a victim being held hostage at that residence, but that someone that sold drugs at a separate location received a package at that residence on several occasions. Not that that person lived there. There was no cooperative testimony. The person was known to frequent that location, known to sell drugs at that location, or known to have anyone in danger at that location. So that is the first problem, that we have a judge that swore and took an oath to protect the community, right? Because again, just like I challenged prosecutors this morning, I'm challenging judges too. You take an oath to seek justice. That's not justice. Signing a warrant to give cops who are ill qualified, who do not have the proper training to even exercise normal control on the street for an arrest, you give them carte blanche to enter someone's home without knocking. Just like Brad said, they're going to use that to be more amped up because, like, oh, now we're busting in. We don't know what's going to happen. They try to justify their act, and that's where the system is. And that's where justice has not been served. And that's where the DA should have checked that cop when he was asking for that warrant, because they didn't have a legal basis to even apply for it to begin with.
You know,
So I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have one question. So why did the city settle the civil suit with the family for $12 million if none of them were going to get charged? Like why
Yeah,
like
that's
how
my
can you
question.
settle?
If you look back at, and David maybe will expand on this a little bit, but the best example of this is O.J. Simpson. To recover, remember, O.J. was found innocent of killing Goldman and his wife, but he ended up paying the Goldman family, I don't know, $30 million or something like that. And the reason is this: in a civil trial for money, when you sue somebody civilly for money, there's a different burden of proof. And the burden of proof is preponderance of the evidence you're wrong, which means a jury weighs in their head. If you've ever been on a jury, 51% of the facts say the cops did something wrong. 49% the facts say the cops were right. Cops lose every time, and they have to pay the full amount. For a criminal trial, it's reasonable doubt, where that burden is much more. What would you say, like, the percentage of facts? Is there a way to weigh the percentage of facts?
Like with preponderance of the evidence. So in the law, there's a phrase that it's a slight tipping of the scale. So really, you look at the scales of justice, it's like a 51-49 for preponderance of the evidence. When it comes to reasonable doubt, it depends on what role I'm in. As a prosecutor, I'm minimizing that burden. As a defense attorney, I'm telling you during voir dire and during summation that beyond a reasonable doubt is the highest standard that the law could allow. And that means beyond any reasonable doubt that anyone can have. And I'd probably take that up to 99%. However, if you were to say that in a courtroom, you would get objected to, because you cannot quantify beyond a reasonable doubt. The judge will give that instruction, and even the judge themselves don't articulate a quantification of what beyond a reasonable doubt means. I think Brad hit the nail on the head right away. It's a PR issue for the police department, obviously, and because the burden is so low, they knew they would have to pay out anyway. A jury is going to be more inclined to throw a large sum of money at Ms. Taylor's family, unfortunately, then, as we've seen, indict the officers that were responsible for her death. However, what should be noted, and Brad knows this, the standard in the grand jury is just as low as it is in civil court. It's preponderance of the evidence. There is a phrase and a saying in law enforcement, in the DA's office, in the criminal defense world, that you can indict a ham sandwich. It is extremely easy to indict someone. You only need to give a basic outlining of the facts, not even the specific details, to get to that preponderance of an evidence standard, which is why I think the presentation may not have been done so thoroughly. I think what Brad said earlier is probably the way that a lot of grand jurors felt, is that, these cops went in there and they didn't know what to expect. And the way that the testimony would have come out in the grand jury as to who fired first, I would say it had to be the determinant factor. But also what I said to Brad, and I'm on air, I hide from my word. What I said when I walked out of your office, Brad, and you said the system is broken and, I guarantee this won't happen in an all-white neighborhood. The system is operating exactly how people want it to work, right? It is a broken system on purpose. Why? Because in America, we have private prisons. When you have private prisons, the more people you fill it up with, the 1% are making money. And that's just a fact.
So I happen to agree with you 100%. There's a system that is in place that requires people to go to jail, that people have to go to jail. And as a result of that, who's going to jail? It's not rich white dude going to jail unless they're caught, red-handed, paying somebody $500,000 to get their daughter into school. And that's only for 15 days they go to jail. But the point is that we have a system that doesn't work. And yes, I want to see justice for Breonna, in the sense I want to see justice for George Floyd, in the sense that somebody has to go to jail and pay for their death. But the real justice is going to come when the system changes so we don't have more Breonnas and more George Floyds. And that happens when laws change. And that starts with our elected leaders. And unless our elected leaders are going to change the system, we can march all day long for justice for Breonna, justice for George, and everybody else that came before them. Okay? There should be no knocks on for a guy with drugs. There was no reason, David, why a cop can't wait outside the door. Eventually, he's got to come out of the house. Right? Just wait for him. Just wait for him. He's not going to sit in the apartment for a year, even if it's a week. Just wait for him. Eventually, he'll come out and just arrest the guy if that's what you wanted to do.
But the crazy thing is they had no warrant for anyone in that residence. Like, the basis for the no-knock warrant is so ridiculous to me that the person who they actually went and arrested separately several miles away was receiving packages there, right? That was the basis for a no-knock warrant. You hit on something else, Brad, that, justice in America doesn't look the same. I mean, we just saw just this week, the woman in California, the actress that has to serve out her sentence, that gets to pick the jail that she goes to. Where else do you see that sort of thing? And Vanessa, you hit on something earlier that really bothers me, right? Whatever ignorant person wrote on your feed, forget about, white, black, Latin, Hispanic, Asian, whatever. It is a basic human issue. If someone is killed that does not deserve to be killed, if that doesn't bother you, you are a sick person. And anybody has a problem with that, at me, David Moreno, ESQ. We can debate it all day.
You're right. Breonna Taylor, innocent woman,
send them your way, David.
sitting in her apartment, has the police knock down the door and gets killed. And by the way, even if the boyfriend shot first, don't you think he has a right? He doesn't know who the hell's barging into this apartment. Doesn't he have a right to defend himself?
In his home.
It's his home.
He doesn't know who's out.
You don't know who the hell. I mean, and I'm not even. I don't. And the ballistics say he didn't shoot first. But even if he did, doesn't he have a right to defend himself? I mean, if I'm sitting in my apartment and I have a gun and someone bursts in and it's pitch dark in the middle of the night, I'm fast asleep, I'm going to say, hey, who's there? So, any event, I'm going to let everybody, one last word. We got to move on. Jonathan, Vanessa, David, your last words on this.
I'll just keep on stressing, like Brad said, it's your local government. You have to please do your research. This will not end until we all get out there and start voting, putting and electing the people that make these decisions. That's basically all I could really say. I mean, keep on doing your research. This is out there for us to learn, and tell your friends and family to also do so, because so many people think that they can't make a change just because it's one person, but one person can make a big change. So let's just go out there and start voting.
Yeah, and to follow up with that, of course, so important, everyone go out and vote, but people don't outrage for no reason. And now that we have gone through this and we keep seeing it day to day, the conversation needs to keep happening. By us talking about it doesn't mean it's going to stop, but it will raise a conversation. There'll be a lot more awareness. Again, we don't blame, not all cops are bad, but by making this a conversation that we're constantly having, raising your voice, having, these conversations with people around you, it'll build more awareness. So when these people do go into work every day, they can only do their best to try and make the best decisions. And I mean, you can't point fingers. Good cop, bad apples are everywhere. Racism is still a real thing. It exists. It has existed. And hopefully, we can be part of the generation that creates a revolution where will anything completely, not exist anymore? No, but can we really make a change? Absolutely. So that we don't have to keep having stories like this.
And David?
Thank you all for taking time out of your show to educate and have a dialogue about this, because I think dialogues like this are incredibly important. Be the light, be the love, be the change that you want to see in the world, right? That goes from everything from large to small. Not writing offensive comments on people's Instagram pages or Facebook pages, up into, holding your neighbor accountable, whether you're a cop, fireman, lawyer, police officer, anyone. It's accountability. And Vanessa and Jonathan, you guys hit the nail right on the head. Go out and vote. However, don't only vote in the main election, the main event, the one that they condition you to think is the only one that matters. Our branches of government are broken up into 3 separate branches for a reason: executive, legislative, and judicial. Legislative makes the laws, judicial enforces the laws. Judges in most cities are elected, right? Do your research and make sure you get involved in local elections, because guess what? Those are the folks that are going to affect your day-to-day life the most. And in the executive branch, they often can't move without approval from the legislative branch. So while you should go out and vote in the presidential election, and it's very, very important, I'm not going to minimize that. The local elections are just as important, and they should be taken just as serious.
All right, and my final word is, I'm just reading Jessica Leamy. Joelle Reed says, the deaf and the blind knew that the boyfriend didn't shoot first. And what I found extraordinarily interesting on a no-knock warrant, one thing which I didn't know until this segment, David, was that the cops asked the ambulance to leave. But what also I did know before this segment is that the cops did not have body cams on, which is extraordinarily unusual.
Especially with that kind of call.
Why didn't they have their body cams on unless they knew they were going to do something that wasn't correct? Just unusual that they would go on a no-knock warrant and have no audio or video of it. Boyfriend says the cop shot first. The cops say the boyfriend shot first. And my opinion, there's no body cam. That they mistakenly forgot to have an audio and video of what was going on. I believe the boyfriend.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate you all for having me.
Wacky World is Thursday. Apparently in Japan, guys, Japan has the oldest population in the world, and it's causing a labor shortage. But they have a new solution. No, it's not immigration. That would be the real solution. They have a new solution there. 7-foot-tall robots who stack shelves in convenience stores. With almost a third of the population age 65 and above, companies are turning to technology. This week, Lawson, a FamilyMart and Lawson, they're 2 big convenience stores. They deployed its first robot at a convenience store in Tokyo. FamilyMart trialed the same robots last month and says it plans to have them working in 20 stores by 2022. Matt Kamutsu, head of business development and operations, tells CNN Business it's able to grasp or pick and place objects of several different shapes and sizes. He's sitting at home.
See how they program it.
Yeah, No, he's moving the robot, so he could be like sitting on the toilet. Yeah, I didn't see that. So he could be like sitting on his toilet at home, stacking shelves. It's the new stock boy. He doesn't leave the bathroom for anything. He can just sit on the toilet all day and stock shelves.
Have you guys ever seen iRobot?
We're going into the Jetsons.
Yeah. Have you ever seen what?
Have you seen that iRobot with Will Smith?
No.
You haven't?
No, I know the movie, but I never saw it.
Okay,
yeah, exactly. I know the movie, but I haven't watched it.
Yeah.
Okay, at the end of the day, it don't go well. Look, stick to human beings, all right? These robots, you can't trust them. I believe that they're going to get the mind of their own. They're going to start a whole community and just turn.
Jonathan.
I would not, and then at 7 feet? Hell no, I'm good.
Did you ever see the movie The Terminator? Arnold Schwarzenegger's a robot, goes back in time and kills all the robots kill everybody. I saw that movie.
Exactly. I don't trust them. I don't trust
trust no robot, that's for sure.
You will never run out of people that need jobs.
Let me explain something to you. If I am ever in Japan, I will not be going to FamilyMart or Lawson's convenience store. That is for sure. I don't want no scary robot doing anything with my food. All right. Meanwhile, from scary robots in Japan, we're spanning now to Mexico City, where a crew who is cleaning 22 tons of trash from a Mexico City drain, they came across what is considered perhaps the largest rat ever found. The rat, which turned out to be a Halloween prop that was in a warehouse, but they thought it was a 22-ton rat. They freaked out. Apparently washed away, this Halloween prop apparently washed away during a storm, but they thought they found the biggest rat in the history of the world. People who saw this...
it wasn't real.
It was not real. People who saw this giant rat couldn't figure out how it squeezed through the drain in the first place due to its size, but everyone marveled at how big and real it actually looked. Can you imagine you're the worker and you come across this rat? Would you freak the hell out?
What? Just looking at those pictures.
You talk about robots taking over over the world. Now it's rats taking over the world. Huge rats.
He's almost as big as the cop.
20.
He's as big as the cop.
20. Oh my God! But it
that's how I feel like the rats. That's how I feel like the rats in New York are becoming, because not everybody is riding the trains anymore, so they're not throwing trash out. I heard that these rats are eating each other. So like it's only like the biggest rats that are actually surviving now, and I believe that that's what it's going to end up being.
I'm going to tell you something. I saw a rat come run across where I was on Lexington Avenue about a week ago. I am not even kidding. This rat looked like a small German Shepherd. Like a baby German Shepherd came flying across. And I'm like, wait, somebody put a collar on that dog. And then my friend goes, that's not a dog, that's a rat. I go, what, are you kidding me? I mean, they were huge.
Oh, gross.
Huge.
And they eating each other now.
Huge.
Because they ain't got no trash. Nobody's throwing trash out. They're eating each other.
Meanwhile,
beware, y'all.
Meanwhile, going from Mexico City all the way up to the Arctic in the North Pole, a group, I took the plane the wrong way. A group of explorers were sailing the open seas in Svalbard, which is an archipelago between Norway and the North Pole, and they came across a giant iceberg. Now, two of the guys who are experienced climbers started scaling this huge chunk. One of them, Mike Horn, is a famous explorer for more than 30 years. They obviously didn't expect what happened moments after they started scaling it. They started to make their way up and across using ice picks and boots, and the iceberg began to tilt, and the whole thing toppled over. You want to know why?
They're okay, right?
Yeah, they're okay. You want to know why? Because it's global warming. All the icebergs are melting.
Yeah.
The Titanic-sized lesson here is when someone yells iceberg right ahead, don't jump on the iceberg. Now, not with global warming. The icebergs are melting. Going from the Arctic, Yo-Yo and Vanessa, we're headed to Germany, where a nudist in Germany chased a wild boar after it stole its laptop and received applause when he got his laptop back. The photographer who captured the drama said the unidentified nudist was happy to share the images. The man was sunbathing naked in Berlin, a popular and perfectly legal practice in the German capital. And then the wild boar had apparently spotted a pizza being eaten by other bathers. It seized a yellow bag containing the man's laptop, believing it also was a pizza. The photographer, Adele Landauer, said because the bag contained his laptop, he gave it his all and ran across the park absolutely naked after this wild boar who stole his laptop. And he finally got it back, and it made the news only in Germany.
Oh, man.
Wow.
Yes. And
Look, that's what you get.
Yep.
For eating pigs.
Yes. And moving from Germany to Iceland, people around the world are finding different ways to relieve stress during the coronavirus pandemic. For some in Iceland, it's screaming. That's what I do every day on Bradshaw Live. I scream. I talk as loud as I can. Then I go home and I watch the show and I go, why am I screaming for 2 hours? Because I'm stressed out all day. So I'm following what's going on in Iceland, apparently. Now, Promote Iceland, which encourages tourism to the country, is encouraging people to scream to relieve pent-up frustration. And even if you can't travel to Iceland to do it, you can even scream wherever you are. We give you permission right now, Brad Squad, to scream and let it out. Are you ready? Yo-Yo and Vanessa, let's let it out. You ready? I can't
let it out?
take it anymore! I'm gonna scream! And I'm gonna yell! And I'm gonna relieve all my tension right now!
Oh. I feel a lot better.
I feel better.
You've been practicing this, man.
Look at me. My collar is all disheveled now. My face is red, but I gotta tell you.
I know, kind of gave you a little blush.
I gotta tell you,
But do you feel good?
I feel a lot better.
I feel better.
I feel fantastic. I want you to know something. There was one person who was very ladylike here. That was Vanessa, who just watched me and Yo-Yo, who just watched me and Yo-Yo go crazy. And Vanessa's like, listen, I'm a lady. I'm not going to scream on the air. All right? I have some manners.
There's a couple of floors in this building.
Thanks for watching. For more Brad Show Live, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.